Hi, this is the first of many analysis that we are going to go ahead and do on 2022 IIT JAM Economics entrance exam that was conducted on 13th of February 2022. Now, I would say that the paper was a moderate paper. It had few of the bits and pieces of econometrics to it, which it can be considered as an extension of stats. The other part that was pretty surprising is that there was a little increase in the number of questions that were asked from Indian economics as compared to last year paper. So earlier we had 8% or 8 marks for which Indian economics was asked. And this time it was a 12 marks paper from Indian economics. Otherwise, over and out, the paper followed pretty much the same pattern like the last year that we had discussed. Microeconomics came for 26 marks. Macroeconomics came for 26 marks. Statistics came for 14 marks. Maths, a little reduced from last time, came for 22 marks. And Indian Eco came for 12 marks, making it to a total of 100 marks. Some questions were, of course, pretty expected questions. For example, we had questions which were related to how the Indian economy is performing, and we had questions which were related to, the usual with and without replacement questions. These were pretty simple questions to begin with. An obvious question that had been asked in the last year's paper also, and in the mock paper also, what would be the items that would be added to GDP of the economy? Again, an Indian economics question. Then, as I have been telling in all my videos, vector was a short topic that had to come in the exam. So spanning of vector and what formed the basis of vector and linear combination of vector, linear independence of vector. This was pretty important and it was asked. So this was expected question. Nothing unexpected here. Again, this was a very much expected question from macroeconomics. Nothing unexpected here. Power of the test was an expected question. Nothing unexpected here. Then classical model versus Keynes model, very much expected question. It's an easy question to go ahead and do. Economies of scale, pretty much expected question from microeconomics. It had to be asked. This again is a question from mathematics where you go ahead and very simple, where you're having y dash, y double dash given to you, and then you're going ahead and you're finding the equation, expected question. This is Indian economics again, Indian economy. We then had a question from 1 and on 2. Of course, we had to get one question from relation and functions. In fact, I was expecting a question on range and domain also. Pretty much expected questions in all entrance exam. Then we had a question on solo model, which was asked last year also, and it was asked even, not only in this entrance exam, it is usually asked in almost all the entrance exam. So a pretty much expected question on steady state, on golden rule level. We had one question on Indian economy again. And then we had this question on difference equation. Again, this is as per the last year's exam. There was a question in the mock paper in the past year on the difference equation. Last time, if I remember well, something like this, A100 minus A50, something like that came in exam. And this year also we see a question on the difference equation. So it's an expected question. This is a question which is from the difference of sample proportions. And this question again is coming from statistics, and it's an expected question. So over and out, this is on quantitative theory of money, on which we have done various lectures discussing what is the quantity theory of money and understanding how the quantity theory of money works. In fact, we had a full-fledged discussion on this when we were doing our own mock questions. So it's coming from there. Again, we had done a full lecture discussing what to do with limits and continuity in the final days, and we know how to solve such questions, how to check left-hand limit, right-hand limit, how to check continuity and differentiability. This is Indian economy. Then you had a question which came from cross price elasticity and income elasticity. I think so this can be considered as a simple question from the very basic concepts of demand. Very basic concepts. So it's a good question related to the demand side. Then this was good, but this came last year also, which was on Simplex method. And we have a video that we had posted discussing the Simplex method in detail on how to go ahead and use this method to solve linear programming problems. This is a question which was on production function, and we had actually discussed production functions like L to the power alpha, K to the power beta, and we had also talked about how to do a monotonic transformation of the functions using log, and using that how to identify the values of betas and alpha and what they mean. So it is a pretty much simple question here. This is an ISLM model, and again this is a good and simple question coming from macroeconomics. So I don't see anything which is asked outside the syllabus. A simple question talking about probability. We had done one complete during revision, one complete lecture only related to questions on probability and how to use Bayes theorem and how to understand whether there is an independent event or a dependent event. This, I would say, is a moderate level question. The sole reason being that I kind of liked how in the utility function, they have gone ahead and they have done a monotonic transformation of the utility function. So instead of giving xy as the utility function, they've just given log xy. But we know that monotonic transformations of the utility function are as good as the original utility functions, right? And also here, you could have used a rule that log of course, we'll discuss all these questions in detail, but you could have used this rule otherwise, that log of mn is equal to log m plus log n. That could have been one way out here. The other thing that you could have definitely done is that when you would have found for beta log xy, you could have found the MRS xy and then compared that MRS xy to your usual utility function without monotonic transformation. And if MRS xy is the same, you can use the earlier utility function also. So anyways, we'll take care of all of those things. We'll discuss that in detail. So I liked the utility function that is given here and the utility function that is given here. The other thing that you could have done is either you would have taken a monotonic transformation here also. So, if u of s is x by y to the power alpha, how about saying log u of s is alpha log x by y? And how about writing this as alpha log x minus log y? So one of the function is this and the other function is beta log x plus log y. So you have two utility functions like this. And how about solving these two utility functions, right? So good question. We know the equation of the contract curve is wherever the indifference curves are tangent. So how about going ahead and doing that and testing it for that? Okay, anyways, we'll go ahead and discuss this question. So I will consider this as a moderate level question. And then, this is good, but it is again coming from econometrics instead of stats, I would say that. But then it's a very simple thing. So, if you have done very basic multiple linear regression and you have read about this equation, then you will be able to understand the difference between r square and r bar square and why the two are used and what is the difference between the two. So it's not very difficult question, but you will be able to solve it only if you have read econometrics in the past. Otherwise, if you're only going as per syllabus and doing statistics, then I will consider this as a moderate level question. Otherwise, it's an easy question. Now, when we go ahead and talk about endogenous model, we have done all the 5 models, right? So this was a very simple question. So easy question. Let's go ahead. Game theory, pretty simple question. In fact, the good part is we have done exactly the same 2 games in our lecture. So very, very simple. Then they are talking about the short run production function and they're asking you to find MC and ABC. Very simple question, right? The next thing is that you are given 2 normally distributed variables and they're asking you about what are the properties that they have. So I'll consider this as, I don't know, it's a simple question. It should not be considered even a moderate function. You already know how normally distributed variables, what are their PDFs, what are their CDFs. You have done that, right? It was part of chapter 4 of stats. So we have done that part. Otherwise, these are very simple things. We talked about these properties also. So simple question. Simply, this is coming from Indian Economics. Again, as I told you, this is your F statistics, but again, this is part of your econometrics. So I think that from next time, although the syllabus does not clearly mention, it's a good idea for every one of you to go ahead and practice econometrics in detail. And, we know what F-test means, that simultaneously all the coefficients have to be 0. Very simple, right? Okay, so again, this is something we have discussed as part of our last day's lectures, where we talked about when to know when the variable is continuous, where to check differentiability, what limits, where limit exists, where limit does not exist. This is again a very simple question. This is simply coming from your formula of real exchange rate, which we had discussed as part of chapter 6 of macroeconomics. And we had done the Marshall-Lerner condition also. Then we have a question again on demand and supply. And again, this is coming from the basic microeconomic videos, right? Where we have done what is the elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. So it's a pretty simple question. This is coming from the Keynes model, macroeconomics. Then we have homogeneous question. This came last time also. There was a question asking whether the equations are homogeneous or not. And you just have to go ahead and check that property. This is coming from Indian Economics. Is equal to PE, where E is your price elasticity. We have done this very well in the class. We actually went ahead. We started by a usual equation. And from here, we derived, remember, we derived the MR curve in terms of the AR curve and elasticity. We named that as the Marshall-Lerner condition. We have done that index, right? So we have gone ahead and done this question. It's a very, very simple question to begin with. One good thing that I liked about this question is they have included consumer surplus under monopoly and perfect competition also. So 2 different concepts. One is this index and one is related to consumer and surplus under monopoly and perfect competition. They've tried to add the 2 together. Very simple. As I told you, we know this, that there will definitely be every year questions on vectors, eigenvalues. So it's very similar to that. This is a question on poverty gap. You would find a video on this in the Indian Eco lectures. It's coming from there. Then this is the deflationary gap, inflationary gap coming from macroeconomics. And we have this question is simply a maths question, very, very simple question, nothing difficult here. You're given the total variable cost. We'll do these questions in detail, but today we are just analyzing the paper. You're given the total fixed cost. And then it says for what value of V marginal cost is minimum at X. And we know marginal cost has got nothing to do with fixed cost, right? So this is just given for confusion. Otherwise, it's a simple question. Then you are given consumption function and you are given investment, government expenditure, you're given BET. Oh, very simple. They're just asking you about the multiplier. So it's a pretty simple question asking on multiplier. We had found the multiplier without tax also. We had found the multiplier with tax also. So we had done both these cases and we had found out what is your multiplier under the case where G is equal to T, balanced budget multiplier also. Now, this is simply asking about infinite solution. A very similar question came last time also. Then this is giving you a cost function is given to you. And the demand function is also given to you, and they're just asking about equilibrium quantity in perfect competition. So I'll mark this also as an easy one. Now they're just asking you the formula. So they're just asking you about personal disposable income, and you are given the private income, the GNP, NNP, etc. And this is asking you for the personal disposable income from here. So simple question using your concepts of class 12th and first year of economic honors. Then this is a question that is actually macro, but I would like to mark this as international economics. So if you haven't studied international well, then this might seem to be a moderate question. Otherwise, you just have to use basic exchange rate information, and this is an easy question. The next question was an expected question that there will be a sure shot question on risk or uncertainty from microeconomics. This is basically, I think so, your chapter 11 of microeconomics, and this is a sure shot question that had to come. Last time also, I think so, the utility function that was given was root W. I have to recheck it, and this time it is WQ. That's the only difference. Okay, so now this says that you have your per capita GDP given, and it is saying, assuming that the two countries continue to grow, India's per capita GDP will be equal to per capita of GDP of US in how many years? This is using your development economics concept, where, or you can say macro, where we are asking when will the GDP of the two economy converge. And remember, we had a formula for this, very simple, so you can just use that. In this case, of course, this is simple, this is simply a maths question. Then you have, this is coming from macroeconomics, and it is talking about the money supply generation. And it is giving you, so remember the T-bill that we had done for banking sector, right? So you just have to use that, the deposits of the people, and that CRR has been reduced from 4.5 to 3.5%, which means that there is more money in the economy. So how much more money? And then you can use the concept of money multiplier. There is a simple formula for money multiplier. And using the concept of money multiplier, which is 1 upon CRR, isn't it? You can just find out this. So we'll do all of this in detail a little later. We're just analyzing the paper for today. This is a question which I would like to mark as a moderate question, for the simple fact that the regression model is given Actually, this is something that we do in Delhi School of Economics, where the regression model is given in the matrix format, okay, or vector format. So although this is just B is just 3 cross 1 and X is just n cross 3. However, because it is given in this format, it might seem for you to be tricky, but it's not very difficult when you read the question. Okay, so the next question is, you're given a production function and you're given the supply of labor. And we know this is something we have done as part of the labor market while we were deriving the AS curve, as to where can we find the equilibrium in the labor market and how can we determine the wage. So this is a simple question from that. Now you have your C given to you, T given to you, and I. So you have your IS curve can be derived from here. Your LM curve can be derived from here, and IS and LM together can give you the interest rate. So simple. This is simply coming from linear programming, very similar to the last year's paper. Then you are given a production function. We have done exactly this in one of our assignments. So this should not come as a surprise. So your production function is root of L square plus K square. And you are given total cost, you're given price of labor and capital, and you're given the total cost, and it is asking you the maximum value of Q. So simple question. And finally, you have a question that is coming from two firms. This, I think so, was asked last year also. It, homogeneous firm question. It was in the last 10 questions only, and this year also they're giving a very similar question. So you're given a price function which depends on the total quantity. You're given the two cost functions, and then they're asking the total profit earned by both firms, assuming a competitive situation. Yes, it is exactly similar to what came last time. Nothing has changed. It is very, very similar to the last year's question. So over and out, the paper can be said as an easy to moderate paper, where most of the questions are either in a pattern which came last year or are not very, very difficult and are, taking care of some basic to moderate concepts. Okay, thank you.